kicking things off on Dust2. How's it going, man?
Yeah, indeed. It is going to be the map pick of G2 we're going to be starting out on. So that definitely going to feel a lot of comfortable. Here we saw them absolutely just blast Valiants on this map yesterday to kind of end the day. AVANGAR, though, usually going to feel pretty at home on Dust2. So this should be a good game. AVANGAR having had a pretty good tournament all in all. I mean, they beat Valiants in the upper bracket semifinals, though they did fall short against Wendigo for that first opportunity at Dallas slot. They still have an opportunity here to make that dream happen. For G2, dude, they have been so impressive this online qualifier. This is their debut event with Amanek on the team. They were able to kind of upset Heroic, I think you could say, in the quarterfinals of the upper bracket. After getting beat by Wendigo, they then 2-0'd Hellraisers and 2-0'd Valiants to make it here. It's worth noting that of the maps that G2 has lost, it has only been 14, 16 in overtime losses. They have not, had any games where they've been blown out. Meanwhile, of the games they have won, most of those games, except for maybe one, they've only allowed 4 rounds or less. So they have been tearing through it.
I mean, they're an organization that you expect so much from. And G2, not going to be messing about in this round, getting right up into the face of AVANGAR and Long. Already Fitch has felt the burn from shocks, and James down to just 3 HP. More passive endeavors for AVANGAR. They're going to look to make a move up mid and catwalk simultaneously. Try and get around the back of G2 in transition. And Quicker should be rewarded for at least 1 kill. But Jack's spinning around these 2 players, allowing Lucky to now position himself in a spot where maybe he can fend off this push before it gets into fruition. There's still somewhat of a stalemate setting up here without any grenades on either side to get utilized. Lucky close range with his Glock's going to miss a few bullets onto Sanji. The stand-in is tearing through heads. This P2000 is doing work. And AVANGAR successfully get the retake. They don't have a kit, but there's enough time. They're fine.
Pretty scrappy round. As you said, kind of a stalemate at the initial exchange on that A-bomb site with that bomb going down. But in the end, Sanji, like you said, the stand-in with the hat trick, able to pull off that retake and knock down G2 with Peg, gonna force them to make a tough decision here. Do you want to force buy second round with that additional bomb plant money, or do you want to just full save and get a nice full buy in the next round? It's G2, so of course it's gonna be a force buy. I'm not even sure why I asked that question. I mean, if we're being really honest about it, they are quite well known for doing these types of things, and economy changes or not, you can't change the mentality of the team and the identity style of play they like to bring to the table. They already do have an entry out long A, and they are quickly splitting, and man, Fitch is all alone. He is going to get ruined.
A repeat of the last round, really, just with upgraded guns. 4 players have been bludgeoned, though, for G2. But it's really the fact that 2 players have already been taken out of the server that may put AVANGAR on the back foot. They also have no kit. No defuse kit whatsoever. Lack of grenades, just 3 smokes. And really you need flashes, a Molotov, something else to break into. Shocks. Close range onto Quicker. And, well, already this has turned into a bit of a nightmare. We saw in AVANGAR yesterday, Dust, that we both commented on. They struggled. They did not look good at all. So I was hoping to see something different from them. And this is a very shaky start.
Yeah, they got blasted by Wendigo, particularly that Inferno map. They lost 1-16.
Yeah.
And they will have to play Inferno in the series, maybe. I think it is the 3rd map, if I'm not mistaken. So definitely stuff to think about when you consider how this is going to shake down. Also worth considering the head-to-head issue between these 2 teams. I mean, it was AVANGAR, if you'll remember, that did beat G2 at the Major. And that was on Overpass. That won't really factor into this series. But they know what it feels like to beat this team. Meanwhile, G2 was one of the teams that helped eliminate AVANGAR very early from that PLG Grand Slam event. And that was one of the big dark marks on AVANGAR's record. It was having a really quick tournament there. And Dust2 was one of the maps G2 beat them on to win that best of 3. So just to add that little sliver of intel, as we do see G2 poking and prodding over at long A. Have spotted one on the corner already and forced them back. Not much to work with for AVANGAR this round.
Sanji does have a Desert Eagle on long. The kind of position where it could strike multiple times if G2 aren't careful. Gonna be smoking on the cross. There's the second. A flashbang behind it. Fitch and Sanji laid in wait. Gonna have Jane making a move up with his MP9. Flashbang over. landing in the eyes of the terrorists. But actually, from design of G2, it's Kenny S with the AUG at cart that is doing work. But here comes Buster. Here's FAMAS. Downrange for 2 headshots, turning the manpower in favor of AVANGAR. But he's been found by AVANGAR on long. And now it's pretty one-dimensional. There are 2 players on CT. This is where the MP9 can't really do a great deal. And even though James did connect some shots, it's almost a pea shooter at that range against armor. So he's going to get chewed and spit out. And Kenny S with the last kill. Not much Sanji could do from Elevator. 2-1 to G2.
Yeah, now they just have that economic advantage that's going to be carrying over for another round, you'd imagine. There's a little bit of money there for AVANGAR, but Quickard's very low on funds. Fitch hasn't really had that much money either to be able to afford the big rifle, so they will likely just maybe get some upgraded pistols at most. And then have to concede and wait for the next round. This gives an opportunity for that MAC-10 of Shocks to perhaps farm some extra dollars. They've already picked up an AUG, so that was kind of a freebie. And there is indeed Shocks leading the way with that MAC-10 over at a very empty B bomb site now that Buster's been dealt with. Everyone else kind of stacked mid. Now they're going to be transitioning through lower B tunnels.
Yeah, just a couple of 50-50s and his use. So this range, Jacks, 1 by 1, AVANGAR will walk into their death. James, though, is going to find Shocks. Only a MAC-10. Kenny S wasn't sure whether he was top of short or lower. And now he's found out the answer to that question. AVANGAR, as a result of the save, going to have some guns in play, including an AWP. So let's see if James can turn this around.
Yeah, we'll see. He has to face a G2 team that's making a lot of adjustments. You'll note that nowadays, Shocks is a part of the main attacking group. He's kind of shifted his position back to that role. He's played it before, to be fair, but more known to be a playmaker on the edge of the map. That's kind of his true history. So definitely be on the lookout for that, and AVANGAR being kind of more of a lurk. As we are going to see a big, long A fight perhaps commence here. AVANGAR haven't quite committed to it just yet, but here they go.
Flash over. Doesn't really affect the CTs that much, but there's Kenny S with a double. I don't think Fitch was hit by the flash, but the second player certainly was. They weren't able to counteract with an avenging kill. And G2, they flipped the kill switch, and AVANGAR have been completely decimated once more. 2 AWPs remain. Sure, it's a lot of firepower at their disposal, but Buster now giving his position away with that kill. G2 can rummage together a rotation through Cat, but there's still so much time available to them.
Exactly. And there's really no wrong decision to make here. No matter what you do, if you stick together, you should win this round in the 4-on-2. And there is Shocks leading the way up catwalk onto James. That bomb will get planted. And now it's more about just Buster seeing if he can indeed say this op. There's so much money on G2. There's really no reason for them not to chase this down and ensure that AVANGAR will have very little to work with in round number 6. As Buster does move his way towards T-spawn to try to hold on to this. He is going to get basically pinched through B site from behind and a player at T-spawn. So I don't think he's getting away with this one. It would be quite the miracle if he did. And yeah, it doesn't take too long for Shocks to sniff him out. And yeah, just kind of going back to the G2 adjustments, they've also had AVANGAR kind of come in as a secondary caller, from what I understand. Malek, their coach, did an interview at WSG and kind of talked about how they wanted Shocks to move to a more central position on T sides and be a part of the main attacking group. That way he can kind of have eyes on what's going on, because before he was just playing the edge of the map, didn't really have a full picture of, you know, what was going down, how to handle things. So getting him involved more will allow him that vision, and then AVANGAR can kind of be that guy that helps direct mid-round traffic. I feel that Shocks, one of his weaknesses was that he would sometimes get lost in the sauce and all the chaos, and AVANGAR's meant to kind of help stabilize their mid-rounds a little bit more, as well as kind of taking over one of those peripherals for Shocks to free him up to be more of an attacker. So those are some big adjustments. I think Jax also is kind of making a little bit of a role shift in all of this as well, to try to be a little bit more involved with Lucky Shocks and Kenny S, of course. So definitely some things to keep eyes on.
Sure, yeah, it was always a bit of a head scratcher, because, you know, the example that's coming up in my head, it's like taking a footballer as prolific as Pele and putting him at left back. It's like he can still be really good, but he's going to be nowhere near as effective as putting him up front. And that's kind of how I feel with Shock. As you say, playing on the periphery, it's just it doesn't really allow him to flourish fully and show what he's capable of doing. And now we're starting to see a rejuvenated, reinvigorated Shox, where we know that he can take over maps. He can start to land crazy ADR on these big clutch, these big entry frags.
Well, I mean, he was just of that class of player that just liked being a playmaker on the edge of the map, like an Olaf Meister or a Nico, even when he used to play on mouse sports. So it's a mentality that many have had, but Shox has played this role before. This isn't new to him, and he was very effective in this role on a couple of big Tier 1 events. I remember a couple of DreamHack Masters events where he had made that shift and had done really well, but nothing really to work with for AVANGAR this round, yet they have already gotten the bomb down. It was the first thing through the long A doors, and it has been dealt with. Kenny's trying to quickly get back, but this utility has held them off, and so AVANGAR, they're trying to get something going here. Quicker even picked up an AK.
Yeah, and he got a Molotov too, so he actually tossed the Molotov into long doors to stop the re-engage. So kind of a double whammy for G2 to contend with, and now they're not entirely sure how many players are bulked up on long. So that was a huge passage of play that's going to whittle down a good 20, 30 plus seconds. And with it all being G2 in long doors now, they're going to have to funnel out. And it's worked fine. They still had the advantage in terms of firepower, in terms of grenades. But there was a glimmer there, Dust, where you thought, okay, maybe this could be a banana peel that G2 slip over.
Yeah, it was a sparkle in the eye, but it quickly fades. As Buster and Fitch, the only two players left, and they don't have any armor. Only Fitch even has an upgraded pistol. He's already been collected, so this round will eventually go the way that we expected. As G2 now march to a 5-1 lead again. Throughout this tournament, they have dominated most of their games, allowing 4 rounds or less in almost all of their map wins. And all of their losses have been razor thin in margin, so they are looking really powerful, and which that's good to see in a debut event with AVANGAR. Maybe not against the elite teams of the world, sure, but you have to start somewhere. But AVANGAR back onto a full buy, so now they'll be able to pose a little bit more of a threat to G2's attack.
This is where AVANGAR need to start stamping down some authority and showing G2 that, look, we have to be respected. We're not a walkover. Because G2, once they had their way with Valiance on Dust2, they were just so free. They were so confident. And Shox and Jax, it's no frill CS. It's simple. It's basic, but it's so effective. AVANGAR can't even stand toe-to-toe in these duels. They are being slapped away. A sledgehammer through mid. And G2 going to carve a path to a 6-1 lead.
I mean, we talked about how they've tried to tighten up their mid rounds. It's really nice when you don't have to even play one of those out, right? You just run out early round and get the entries you need, and there's no decision making really to have to think through. It's just, let's just go with it. We've got, 4-on-3 now. We have full access to the B-bomb site. Pretty easy decision to make on how to follow that up. And Sanji just tries to say this AUG over towards Pit. Does take out the op of Kenny S. But there are plenty more terrorists with a lot of bank to come and challenge this, and AVANGAR already on the task.
A bit surprised that Jax is so slow to wrap around and help his teammates out. That's pretty much one of the main reasons why AVANGAR will hold on to their guns. Also, a pretty tasty shot from Sanji onto Kenny S with his AWP, as you mentioned. But yeah, as you also highlighted, money in the bank. They're going to have to deplete through some of those funds, but AVANGAR's still up around 15k. They're good to buy for another 2 or 3 rounds easily here.
Yeah, they're definitely in good shape. Meanwhile, AVANGAR have a pretty good loss bonus built up. But on the CT side, it's obviously still difficult when you're only getting 3,400 around and you're buying down basically to 0 every time to get that utility. And they need to figure out something fast, man. G2 are just kind of bullying them all across the map. And as we've noted, they're not even really doing anything tricky or complex or anything that's really hard to read. They're just hitting fast before CTs even have a chance to rotate. These mid-B splits, the speed at which they're happening are how they push out long A control, and they keep winning that contest, which can usually be rather chaotic. It's similar to banana control on Inferno, where it can be a coin toss sometimes if both teams are gunning for it, but G2 has come out the victor more times than not. It looks like it's going to happen again, as Kenny S was looking for the op pick, but no one's shown themselves.
It's the terrifying thing, isn't it, that the only round as Kenny S is going to get plucked out by Sanji. AWP on long, not going to yield anything, but the only round for AVANGAR was the pistol. And since then, it's been one-way traffic. G2 looking to cruise down the highway once more, and AVANGAR in pole position with his AUG, using it against the counter-terrorist. It's such a strong gun on maps like Dust2. And now with the bomb plant, they're able to shimmy away. And AVANGAR, is it going to be save number 3 or 4? It's looking likely, isn't it?
It is, and I mean, that's one of those things where they got what they wanted out of the early part of that round. They caught Kenny S re-peeking, name a more iconic duo. You know, he gets flashed off, but he's just so confident in his opping ability that he goes for the re-peek, despite the fact that he must know that someone has an angle on him now. He gets dealt with, and so AVANGAR, they have the edge, but G2 are just so quick to respond. I like it. Their decision-making is very reactionary and fast, and they just pop flash Amanek on a cat cross. He gets the entries, and that's all she wrote. And now again, G2 will be looking to try to take these guns out of AVANGAR's hands as they push into the B-bomb site. And they do get all of them, so nothing for AVANGAR to carry over. There's a little bit of money left, though, so they will be able to still get that AWP in James' hands and get some rifles out, though one of them is just a FAMAS, and Quickert is just on a CZ. So certainly far from ideal, especially considering Sanji has no armor. There's no real utility. There's no kits. It's slim pickings out there.
It is, and it's been slim pickings for the entirety of AVANGAR. I mean, James 1 and 7 with 34 ADR. As an all-pot on Dust2, that's just not good enough. Whereas on the flip side, Shox, 113 ADR. Jax, 117 ADR. Kenny's behind them at 85. Everyone is having a great time on the French squad. Shox already up to 11 kills.
And these French teams really do seem to rely a lot on kind of individual confidence and momentum and just feeling it. And so if you're having these players finally come back to form, that's a good sign.
Yeah, sure. They definitely are a confidence-driven team. Jamin Quickert, though, break the deadlock with a quick-fire double. Maintaining all of their health in the process. This is more like it. This is a start they need. Finally winning some duels. There's another one. James finds Shox, crawling, crouching, slithering his way up short. Cutting the head off the snake could yield this round, or at least you'd certainly hope so in a 2-on-5. This would be a heartbreak of a loss if they concede from this point. Amanek and Kenny, they have 38 seconds. Got a bit of utility, have control of the bomb. Awesome bonuses, and Amanek finds James out in the open. His woes continue. Has picked up 2 kills this round at least. So some confidence building. Quicker, it's a laboured spray, but he's got Amanek dead to rights, and the AVANGAR will double up and get their second round. First since the pistol.
Yeah, and what's big about that is they kept 4 players alive, and they found the second op for free. So that's really big when you consider the economic situation to be able to kind of get a free AK and a free op. It allows them that extra bit of cash to ensure that they do have full utility this time around and get some kits on the table. Really nicely done that round, kind of catching all of G2's little microaggressions across the map. Ooh, a nice little shot there to the door on the Shox takes him down to 5 HP. It's going to make it really tough on him to be effective now with just an AK-47 in his hands. He might get the op. Pocket Slaw could come into play.
Thing is, it's going to be a pretty difficult task to get that AWP out of Kenny S's hands.
Yeah, you got the prime out of his dead fingers, it feels
really,
like.
Yeah.
To be fair, Shox has been known to sneakily take it away from him, so I don't know. It can go either way on that one, but it looks like it won't be the case as Shox is just kind of focusing on soloing up Catwalk, while the rest are looking maybe for some long control at A really late in the round. And here they do pop out.
Chip damage with Molotov and HEs. James going to have to scurry away, and he did enough damage and applied enough pressure to relocate. Shox first in. Grenade picks him off quicker. He's going to get the second. Looking much better here for AVANGAR as G2 attempt to gather some intel, gather some movement towards the site. Are you going to be attacked again? The last bullet in the magazine from Fitch pierces through the smoke and jacks his head. And now Lucky's going to have to go ham. There's the second. And the boost up could yield a third, but runs out of ammunition. Lucky living up to his name with just the 1 HP remaining in the backside with the Glock. Gets Buster, and Tediez chips in onto Sanji. The round is a collapse, and Lucky take a bow.
Indeed, Lucky has been, I feel like, one of the great additions to this G2 team. His individual form through all of this transition has been actually quite good. He's been one of the kind of silver linings for some of G2's struggles when you think about event results. At least he's gotten his, and that's a big round from him. He's been a great entry for this team at times, and that was a big play to hold off AVANGAR, who were dominating the early portion of that. They've really gotten a lot better at contesting these upfront choke points and kind of denying G2 free space, who have really just kind of walked all over the map throughout this game. AVANGAR finally contesting that, but it just didn't matter in that round. Lucky pulls one over. And so now it's 8-2. AVANGAR still able to buy. Again, there's no more hard economic reset to worry about, so still there. But a round like that still serves as nightmare fuel, I imagine, for AVANGAR.
It does for their accountant too, because it's the second time that they've won a round and instantly get broken back down again. So you can see their funds, there's nothing left in the bank. If they lose this, AVANGAR are in all sorts of trouble for this half. It could be a complete nightmare. With G2 very likely getting double digits, you think, from this point, potentially getting 11 or 12. Molotov down onto Fitch, forces him away, gets some short control for G2, flash over, keeping that pressure directly applied to the jugular, and now looking to rip it out. Jame can only get one in that position with so many terrorists forcing their way onto him. And they also have shocks going up long, so they know that A is clear. Just going to make sure that all the corners are checked before they go for it. Now they know the bomb plant coming in. Sanji's been spotted by Shocks, who gets the one tap through the smoke. And Buster really going to be saving more than likely. There's no hope of getting a 1v3 clutch with no nades and no kit from this spot.
Yeah, having the armor and AK come over would definitely be really huge, as I think they're still floating around max loss bonus. I think that loss counter hasn't gone down past that point. But again, when you're on the CT side, $3,400 is tough, because if you want armor, you have to get a FAMAS. If you want utility, you're thinking of like a pistol or an SMG or something like that, or you're just saving to get a nice full buy in the next. Either way, it's going to be less than ideal at round number 12 for AVANGAR. A great opportunity for G2 to go ahead and make that run to double digits. It's like AVANGAR are electing to kind of take a halfway approach. Get some upgraded pistols, but make sure they're going to have a good buy in the next. They do manage to get Jame, I think, a scout. Yep, there it goes. Passed over to him.
Indeed. So a couple of low-tier guns being picked up. AVANGAR on the timing, the flashbang down. He's okay to have his feet singed for 24 damage because he's found quicker. To get out of this range is going to do some damage, especially if you don't get in there quick. And Jame finds himself too. Molotov out. And now Shocks can do the rest with his AK-47. Nice attempt by Jame. Maybe this round is still open for business for AVANGAR. 2-on-2. Two pistols against an AK and an AWP. Kenny S has been dispatched, so it's AVANGAR that's taking the sniper rifle now. They're going to be splitting up. AK-47 has been retrieved from Fitch. It's going to be another one for Sanji. They got the right idea, so now they've upgraded their arsenal to 2 assault rifles. This is where things get interesting. Downside is no nades, no kits, and a flip from AVANGAR onto Sanji, leaving Fitch by himself. And if Lucky pops up, he's going to find Fitch, and G2 will claim a 10th round.
Yeah, a pretty close round. Interesting for a little bit there. Unfortunately, the quote-unquote economic damage done doesn't amount to much, as G2 has a pretty massive bank going forward. So they don't really gain anything from making it close, other than maybe some self-confidence that they could win these duels. They need some rounds on the board, though. Yes, this map can quite lean towards the T side, but you need to make it respectable. And Kenny S catches Jame, trying to make a play out middle. That's a big catch, but they do have AVANGAR trapped here at the blue bin. They might be able to even it up. He's in a really tough predicament. He's using some nice utility, though, to get the hell out. And meanwhile, Cat's been left open.
Yeah, it was all a ruse. It was all a bait. And they've bit down on this hard AVANGAR. AVANGAR forcing 2 players to respect the long push. Meanwhile, Short is being battered and bruised. Sanji nearly gets timing going against him with Shocks on the peak, and he switches to a knife. Does stand tall and deliver the kill, but at this stage, saved guns. At this stage, getting a couple kills, it's not good enough. They need to start converting to rounds. G2 are going to have 11 after this, with 1 to go. This is absolutely brutal now.
Oh, it really is. It's looking like one of those games we've seen early on in the lower bracket from G2, like we saw yesterday against Valiants, where they just kind of steamroll through and don't allow their opponent much to be happy about. gun goes 11-2, and this op from Sanji is under threat, but he will carry it over to be able to pass that to Jane. But the problem is it's so difficult for AVANGAR to really buy much around it. Yeah, Quickert will have M4 armor, but everyone else is going to be, you know, really struggling, kind of pinching pennies to get something out. It's going to be a couple of FAMAS for Buster and Fitch. No kit.
Also, I derped what I was saying. I didn't mean one round to, I meant one rifle round to go. As in, they're probably not going to have another solid bite after this one if it doesn't work out for them.
Exactly.
Unless they go for another save, of course, Dust, which they haven't been shy in doing.
Yeah.
It's safe to say. They've been okay with saving quite a few times.
Yeah, it's just, you always hate to be in that situation where you're having to constantly run away with 2 or 3 guns each round because the early battles just don't go your way. You are going to see G2, and they're not slowing down at all. They're going to go for that fast play once again, but there's no utility to stop Sanji to just hold his corner, and finally a flashbang comes out, and Jax is able to get the entry to get that A-bomb side open, but that was a bit labored. The bomb will go down, and AVANGAR, I feel like they have to go for this retake, even with the kit is in James' hands, so they need to do it.
Oh, they absolutely have to go for it, because saving at this point would make no sense. I get the idea, if we want guns in the next round, sure, but you're going to be 12-2 behind, guys. You can't play passive anymore. Now you've got to take the initiative. Now you've got to start going in. There we go, Jane. Awakening. Kenny S. put in his place. Jackson, meanwhile, though, they're all clumped up. They're all together. And headshots being 3 in a row for G2. And there was no hope for AVANGAR. They all had the low ground. And it was easy pickings for G2 at the end. 12-2. And dare I say that this map is basically over.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a connoisseur of strategy, you're probably not impressed by what G2's doing. I mean, again, it's nothing complex. It's nothing beautiful about it. It's just simple, but it is effective because their spacing has been pretty good more often than not. And they have used, you know, good enough utility to get what they need done. And now, again, they're fighting for this long A control early.
And just for masses... 2 smokes, CZ for Quickert. They do have a kit at least. Long stack. With Lucky watching the B tunnels. He may see action if Quickert decides to push around the back of them. Interesting that their diffuse kit is over on B when we've seen so many A hits, and it's going to be another one. Is Quickert going to go for a rotation? No, he actually stands in position. An AUG for Jame.
Look at this. G2 don't leave anyone. Usually you'll park at least 1 player pit if you want to fade off for some type of cat split, but they're all just running towards B tunnels. A quick call. And they are going to be right. This is indeed the vulnerability.
Quickert, CZ, didn't rotate when the 2 kills came down on long. So he's going to be called into action. 12 bullets. Separate him and the push. And Lucky is going to find the headshot without too much of an issue. Molotov to window, bomb planted. AVANGAR shortly with no hope of getting this 2v5 clutch. It's so bad. Morgan FAMAS. Fitch should have catch a nade if he stays around for too much longer. Just backs away in time. I think they're going to... Are they thinking of tunnel here? To be honest, their chances of getting anything done are just so slim that whichever way they go, they're going to get pummeled.
Retaking B at the best of times, meaning maybe a 1-player advantage is difficult. Trying to do it in a 2 versus 5 is... That would be unreal if a team capitulated that hard to allow a retake to happen in 1B with 5 players. So, couldn't expect much. G2 go up 13-2. I like what they did that round, though. They went for the initial long A push, which, again, that can be a little bit of a coin toss if both teams have good spawns. They kind of rush 3 players long A. It kind of just turns into a mess, and it's just whoever comes out on top just barely is going to take the advantage. But G2 didn't actually really aggress. They kind of just boosted the player blue bin, and they waited for AVANGAR to retake long A. And they were right, and they had a player up top. He gets the kill. All of a sudden, everyone's looking at that guy, and then boom, someone steps out from behind on the low ground, gets a frag as well. So a little good bait and switch play from G2 for a couple of key kills, and then they just knew that B should only have 1 player. I mean, you got to respect A now that they've taken long from you. So they just played the numbers game, and they made things happen, and now they have a massive lead going into this pistol round.
They certainly do. AVANGAR, a steep climb ahead of them before they get to the summit of potentially taking us towards overtime, because you have to assume that G2 are at least going to get a couple rounds in regulation here. It's not going to be smooth sailing at all, and they've got to get this pistol. The first obstacle ahead of them, Kenny S, already playing aggressive through mid, getting into lower tunnels. He is alone, though. Very split up from a Vanguard. They've got Quickert and Sanji just outside of long, while the rest of the team is in tunnels. Bomb carrier of Buster is peeking in first, which is always a little bit scary, but he hasn't actually peeked outside the mouth of the tunnel.
G2 couldn't be better positioned than they are right now. This is a nightmare for AVANGAR.
Yeah, they have a great rotation set up as well with an extra player of Jackson short. So if the call comes through, he's going to bolster up the defense with Kenny S, and they can pinch around. The key player here could actually be Sanji, but he's been found already. If he could take down Jax and get around the back of Kenny S, things could get interesting. But now they're going to push the button. Now they're going in for this. The flashbang is going to stall a little bit longer as Lucky looks to claim some kills, and it's a complete bloodbath. G2 turning up the heat once again, and that was a Vanguard's last chance.
That was such a ridiculous setup from G2. It really couldn't be more dangerous for AVANGAR when they are in those positions. You have a player with lower B control. He has so much information. He can catch rotations through lower B tunnels. It's a nightmare. Then, as you noted, you have a guy aggressive Cat. It's just one guy A, basically. But, granted, because he's on Cat, he quickly rotate to A if needed. So it's a really good setup for dealing with any type of mid-B play. And it's still relatively safe because to transition back to the A side of the map is not that difficult for Kenny S and lower B tunnels and for your Cat player. Steal that setup is my point, guys, out there. That's a really good CT pistol setup.
That was brilliant. You could kind of see before anything happened that whatever occurred on B tunnels, G2 were always going to have the advantage going in because of the positioning.
Yep.
Purely based off that. MP9s at that kind of range shocks. Good luck to you, sir. But the FAMAS, certainly tailor-made a whole lot better. The long engagement. Shocks flashing up. Is he actually going to push through that? I think he decides against it. Doesn't know how many enemies are on the other side of the smoke. Buster is going to crack open the site, but again, you send the bomb planter in first, and now the rotations can come in. Sanji's going to get one, but here comes Shocks. He gets scouted down. This is actually some pretty solid fragging now from a Vanguard.
Oh, well, that's huge.
Would be an excellent way to break the economy of G2 before things get in motion, but Kenny S has a few things to say about that. Trying to tap him with a FAMAS, lands the headshot, spins around, vintage Kenny S with another clutch. It's not the AWP, he doesn't need it, but it's going to be 15-2. What a performance.
It is indeed a great performance from KS, but you got to be scratching your head if you're an AVANGAR fan. I mean, you know exactly where Kenny S is. You have a player B tunnels. You have a player out mid. Work together. Don't give Kenny S these safe 1v1s. Don't give him a chance. That's so crazy because they battled pretty well throughout the earlier stages of that round, but then at the very end, they just kind of stumbled before the finish line. And now it could be the last round of the game. G2 buys up, obviously. Around it, AVANGAR with the force, sure, but not a lot to work with. Yeah, this is done. It's all she wrote.
It was the breaking of the back from Kenny S in that 1-on-3 that really has to go the way of a Vanguard. And now they're just going to have to mentally reset themselves. Sanji, last player standing. Kenny S, fittingly, finds him, frags him. And we will move through to map number 2. And G2 are one map away now from securing their spot at DreamHack Masters Dallas.
And yeah, it's just another dominant win from G2 in this tournament, man. I mean, they have run the board on this lower end of the bracket. So many games have gone, you know, 16-4 or worse for their opponent. And that's another example of it. I believe we ended that, what, 16-2?
Yes.
So that was a walk in the park for G2, a tough one for AVANGAR. That's, remember, after they received a pretty brutal beating on Inferno in the upper bracket yesterday from Wendigo. If you'll remember, that was a 16-1 game. So AVANGAR have had a really tough time these last few maps. But we're going to take a quick break before we get into map number 2. We appreciate all of you for tuning in. Please do stick around because we do have at least one more map to go in this qualifier. If you enjoyed the casting, you can give me and Vince a follow. !casters in chat. But yeah, we will return to bring you the rest of this game momentarily. Stay tuned.